rather than do my customary introduction and just welcome, we're going to introduce our new town clerk, which is probably the biggest news of the night. So I'll hand the time over to Michelle to introduce herself for a few moments.
Okay, thank you. So I am Michelle Barron. Today is my first day, so go easy on me. Just to tell you a little bit about me, I relocated to Norfolk about 10 years ago with my family. Since then, I've been involved in a lot of community groups. I worked at Rockham's Community Shop as a manager, and I'm a councillor for Great Ellingham. Previous to that, my experience was mainly in the transport sector, train operating companies. In terms of how I see this role, I'm really excited to be part of this new team, which I think is going to prove to be really collaborative, really open, and forward thinking. And most importantly, that listens to our constituents and listens to our local businesses. And I'm really looking forward to supporting our councillors to do what they need to do to make a better town, and to making sure that we really improve our communication and we ensure that our residents and our stakeholders understand what we are doing and they feel they've got that open communication channel. So as I said, today was my first day, and I spent that going around the town and meeting some of the local retailers and getting some feedback from them and starting to build those relationships. And that's what I'm looking forward to and planning to do going forward. And thank you to Alan and Paula, who have been fantastic today with teaching me the ropes. And that's about it.
Thank you very much, Michelle. She's even brought the sunshine to us today as well. Summer's finally killed. Okay, apologies for absence. I have one apology from Councillor Crouch, who has a prior appointment. I also received, just prior to this meeting, a resignation letter from Councillor Cousins. So he sent his apologies as well. That vacancy will be advertised in due course. Okay, I don't think there's any other calls for apologies. No, everyone else seems to be here. Go on to item 3, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of interest? Councillor Taylor.
Item 18.
Item 18, yes. Councillor Simon.
Item 18.
Okay. Thank you very much. That includes any. Sorry, yes, Councillor.
Item 18.
Item 18 as well. And Councillor Musk. Item 18 as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to be clear, that is after the exclusion of press and public, so councillors will be permitted to take part in that part of the meeting if they have an interest or peculiar interest. Just to state that now.
I just wanted to have clarification on that. I don't have a peculiar interest, but because there are historic issues being involved, and that involve the full council, perhaps it should be that I don't have technically a pecuniary interest because I should be involved in that debate subsequently.
It is, if there is an interest, and due to the legal nature of that, it would be my recommendation, if you can't have an interest in that, then you probably have no part in it.
I disagree with your interpretation.
It can be given to council to determine that, because it isn't a pecuniary interest, it can be determined by council. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, with a pecuniary interest, obviously you would have to be to them, you wouldn't have a choice to declare a pecuniary interest. With a personal interest, obviously the emphasis I think does fall to the councillor, but I think in the hope of preserving your integrity, you would choose to leave. Just Joey, because how does that reflect on you and the council if you stay?
Okay, that's a valid point. Councillor Busk.
You mentioned the word integrity in this matter. I've been a part of this council for a while now, several years, and have been deeply involved with the council at different times, and we're talking about matters that we've all been involved with in some way or other. And I will feel that I have a pecuniary interest, so do all of us.
Okay. I'm just going to the meeting protocols to make sure on this. Under item 2C, under the meeting protocols for the town council, it says if a member has a non-pecuniary interest, they shall declare such interest as soon as it becomes apparent, disclosing the existence and nature of the interest as required. The member may speak on the matter, but not vote. So that is as it's determined in there. So it is at the discretion. Would you like to disclose the interest in line with the meeting's protocol? Councillor Busk, would you like to disclose the nature of the interest you have in item 18?
In that the very confidential report that has been circulated, it is involving historical areas in which I, along with several other councillors, were involved, and that is the only interest, in the sense that other councillors, in fact, the whole of the council at that time was involved. It seems a little odd that if there are contentious issues to be discussed, and this report is an extremely serious report.
Sorry, Councillor Busk, you just need to keep your comments to the matter.
Right, yeah.
So it's just declared an interest. So what you're saying is there's an implication that you are involved with the report, and by the meetings, protocols and orders that we have as a town council, it is within your discretion to attend, but you will not be permitted to vote on anything that happens within that part of the meeting. Okay, and I think councillors have made, Councillor Taylor's made her view known. Okay, are there any other interests? No, thank you. Right, item 4, public participation. Okay, there's any, Nigel? It's been a while.
Yeah. It sort of goes back to the general conversation we've just been having, but also the particular point. When I attended last time, which was July, Councillor Crouch up to the left partway through the meeting. It was then queried by doing that and not attending the full council meeting as to whether he had forfeited his place on the council. Was it ever followed through?
Yes, by attending the meeting, even in part, is
He's got away with it.
is considered attendance. Yes.
Oh dear. Okay.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Yes.
Yeah. My wife, was Diane Jones, has been in the community council for a lot of years. My wife's been over 20 years in Diane's organising here. We had started again, as you know. Miraculous happened between 7:30 and 9:15 next morning when the insurance all got changed. How you work that one, I don't know. But we feel that a lot of people don't know about it again. We've lost a lot of vehicles, obviously. And they just find that the people that tell us, we didn't know it existed. I just wonder some way the council or someone could just advertise it so people do know that that's taking part, because it's not very nice sitting in town hall for quite a few hours on end, trying to wait for someone to phone and book a car, and they don't phone up because they don't know about it.
No, that's a very valid point. It's one of the things that we are trying to resolve as town council in the communication process we have. And to that end, we have a new events and communication subcommittee been established this evening. We'll address matters such as this, but if you'll note that on the minutes, we will follow it up with the new committee to publicise the community casting.
Right, thank you very much.
So, yeah. Yes.
Sorry, can I just add to that? I mean, hopefully with not presentation, but instruction under item 6, anything about the expansion of the town and what have you, these kind of initiatives of community car floors and the board will look at for under item 6, but it's not being forgotten.
On a personal note, thank you for all of you and your wife do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Lane wanted to make a comment on this also.
Yes, as the person was saying, we're going to have a communications committee, but if you'd like to give me your details, I'll contact you tomorrow. And we'll get something sorted. Get it up and running. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other? Yes.
I think this is where I might come in. I won't keep you guys long. I don't know. You may or may not have seen me and my colleague. I'm Sergeant Dan Shelley from Attleborough and Thetford Safe Neighbour Teams, PC Damien Wicks, who is the beat manager at one of the beat managers for Attleborough. Just popped along today, having worked with a couple of your councillors in relation to these safe neighbourhood action panels, also known as SNAPs. I don't know whether that's a generic term people understand. Ultimately, it's a meeting held every 3 months, open to the public, organisations, councillors, etc., where community issues are raised, and from that we raise our public priorities for the police and then tackle with our partner agencies. Whether it's through COVID or whatever, the system in which in Attleborough it needs some sort of tweaking. Is at the moment being police-led when it shouldn't be police-led. It should be police-attended, which by law we have to attend, and we absolutely do. So I'm putting a request out or asking if there is, in order for a safe neighbourhood action panel to exist, needs a chairperson and a vice chairperson, which would obviously run these meetings in conjunction with us as the police. We also have an engagement officer, Paula Galuli, who is au fait with all the procedures and everything. He will walk us through it all with some assistance from that. And the purpose of the meeting, and the purpose why it shouldn't really be police-led, is because ultimately the whole idea is that people will come to this meeting, like a public forum like this, to raise all sorts of issues, things from speeding, which is clearly a police issue, but in conjunction with working with highways around stuff like that. Also, I sit on the Thetford one, and Thetford one we get issues around items along the river, more bins in certain areas which naturally we can't assist with, but the councils can. So the whole idea of it is that at the moment, because it's police-led, it's very police-orientated in the issues being raised, where ideally the whole idea of it is that they're very community-based, and the issues raised that relate to the whole community and not just police-type events. So by coming here today, partly to introduce myself and my colleague, and to put out to the council if there is any volunteers willing to work with us to establish the SNAP in that format, then I'd be very grateful.
Thank you very much. We've got item 14 dedicated to this very matter
Okay.
on tonight's agenda. Thank you to both councillors
Yeah.
Smith and Taylor for this. Councillor Taylor, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I was just going to say what you just said, Bill, that item 14, a recommendation will be made for the council to start hosting
Brilliant.
these meetings ourselves, along with other things. And once we've had the meeting, obviously, until after that item, we won't know the outcome, but once we have an outcome, I'll let you know.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, no, say
That was good for a husband table.
And it's these two councillors that have been liaising.
absolutely, yeah,
themselves.
it's been fantastic. So thank you both for that. Absolutely.
Sorry, broken record again, but I think it's something that we will look at under item 6 is it's town grows. It's almost, we're at a line in the sand, what's happening, what's going to go on, what can we do, how can we change things. So it's an opportune time.
Absolutely.
So as well as both Councillor Taylor and Smith, thank you. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yes, Councillor Taylor.
I was also going to say, don't feel obliged to stay till item 14, because it's a very long agenda tonight. If you do want to go, you
I was going to say we do have to shoot off now, but you've got our details. We are free to be contacted. We're happy to get involved in whatever we can. We've been out with these guys the other evening, so it's brilliant to get involved. But anyone wants to contact us, we can have a catch up. It's no issue.
Thank
We
you.
wish you, but thank you guys.
You are excused.
No, thank you. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from the public? Nigel again?
Quick one.
Yeah.
I wandered around the skate park the other day because clanging and banging going around, having contacted there about being involved in the development of that. Very enthusiastic, we call them youths, young people, what do we call them? Very excited about the new skateboard park they're going to build for us right over there. Has that actually been approved yet? Or are they not quite understanding the story? Because they're under the impression they're getting new skateboard parks sooner rather than later.
The ambition of the council is something that we have put a marker down in, is having a new skateboard park ready for the next summer holidays in 2022.
Fabulous, because the one we've got now is horrendous.
And that's why we're having to take the radical action,
Yeah.
just to prevent it from being a safety hazard. And
In particularly having gone through quite a successful Olympics with skating, with BMXing, etc., to then see that sad heap is an embarrassment. So great, I'm glad you got it in the pipeline. You deserve it. Cool, thank you.
yes,
No, sorry, after you.
No, please.
Mr. Chairman, we're very concerned about the state of our war memorial. And I've spoken to the assistant clerk, who is way ahead of us and on to it all. So I'd just like to say in public, thank you to her, please. Thank you.
thank you very much for that. She usually is very ahead of herself. Yes. She really is very good. Yes. So, but it is a matter that we are taking very seriously. Right, we're hoping to do something similar, but we're having to do it in the right way, because in wanting to clean it and have it in a good manner, ready for our Remembrance Sunday, we've got to be careful as well of don't do anything that will damage it as well. So we're doing our due diligence to do it in the proper way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On the back of that, actually, I noticed that the correspondence about war graves and a request to erect a memorial. Do hope there are no objections to that. That would be
I wouldn't
horrendous.
anticipate any.
No.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the time that we have allotted for the first lot of public participation. So we'll move on to item 5, the minutes of the town council meeting held on the 2nd of August. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, and I spoke this up last time because I thanked Dan for doing such a fantastic job that I haven't had to query them for so long. But I do understand that it was a conversation that wasn't easy to follow in the last meeting, having spoke to people that were watching it at home. So I just wanted to ask if on page 1 of 6 at the bottom, the word making could be put in. So it would say, it would be lawful for the council to consider making a standards complaint.
Okay.
Because obviously it would not be lawful for us to consider that complaint. Obviously that is the job of the monitoring officer,
That's exactly right.
not of the council. But obviously to decide whether or not the council is going to make it, we need to consider.
And that was a discussion.
Yeah. And then on page 2 of 6, just to cement that, at the end of the resolution relating to the complaint, can we just add that if the draft complaint is approved by members, it will be made to the monitoring officer at Brecon Council for his consideration? Because obviously that was again part of the discussion, was that it would be made to the monitoring officer, but that hasn't been reflected in the minutes. And obviously we want to make sure we're above board and squeaky clean.
Taylor, you always try and keep us straight, so thank you very much. Yes, thank you. Do any councillors object to those clarifications on the minutes? They are in line with the conversations we've had.
I mean, I don't know if we'd need a proposer for the amendment and then a seconder,
We
just
would.
to be on the safe side. I'll propose.
I'll second that. Okay, so that's councillor Taylor proposed, councillor Gray to second, and a show of hands for approval, please. Any opposed? Any abstentions? I don't know, Vera wasn't here.
I wasn't here, so.
Here we go.
I did watch it though, but I wasn't here.
I can't believe you're on holiday, you're watching council meetings here.
It was a bit, no, I wasn't paying cards at the same time.
Bless you. So we've had amendments then, as amended. Can we have a proposer to accept the minutes, please? Councillor Westby with Councillor Lane to second, and a show of hands for approval, please. And I believe that's unanimous from those who can. Yes, thank you. Okay, we're looking forward to this. We have a couple of representatives from Home England who are working with Ptarmigan on the delivery of the first phase, that's the first 1,200 houses of the site that we have been speaking about as a town for how long? So it seems a bit surreal here actually talking about delivery. So hand the time over to yourselves. If you want to introduce yourself to councillors and to the public, and
thank you very
the floor is
much.
yours.
Thank you. So I'm Joel Fayers from MPC, and we're assisting Homes England on the community engagement side of the project. And this is Jenny Offord, who is the senior planning manager from Homes England, working on the project, as you say. At the moment, it's obviously called Attleborough SUE. I'm sure that's a phrase very familiar across the town. And as you kindly sort of set the scene, we're here to sort of talk about the first phase, as it were, of the whole development. Obviously, Ptarmigan were the promoters of the site, which obtained outline planning permission. But as that is now developing and moving to the later phases, and obviously the delivery of the project as a whole infrastructure, that's where Homes England role comes into it. So Jenny will go into a little bit more detail in a moment, and their role in that. But I think it's first of all, thank you for the opportunity to spend a bit of time with you this evening. I'm conscious I've seen the agenda, and it's quite a meaty agenda. So we'll try and take up as little time as possible. This is very much a hello, this is us. We're back very regularly. So don't think we're here now and gone, you won't see us for dust. We are going to be back here regularly. Any questions you have, if we can answer now, we can, and we will. But obviously, as we come on to sort of our programme, there's plenty of opportunity for input, questions to be answered. So at this moment, behind the scenes, there's a lot of work taking place. So it's almost, I don't want to jump the gun with providing answers if we're still finding out things behind the scenes. There's very much sort of high level programme setting out what Homes England's role is this evening. So I think on that note, Jenny, shall I pass over?
Thank you, Joel. So just a few words on who are Homes England. So Homes England are the housing accelerator. So we bring to this project influence, expertise, and resources really to positively change the market. So our mission is to intervene in the housing market, to build more homes in the places where they're needed and ensure that there's affordability, and so that's to make a resilient and sustainable housing market. We have a number of objectives as a large agency, but working on this project, we're taking a master developer role, really where we're focusing on the delivery, the design and the delivery of the infrastructure that's needed to get the development started. We have appointed a very large consultant team to bring the technical skills that are needed. So Joel is part of that at MPC on communication and engagement. That is one of the most important parts of the project. So it's really good to hear the things that you're doing as a town council on engagement as well. We really want to reach out widely, people of all ages, for example, to make sure that people understand the project as it develops. It will still take time. I think you've been very patient as it is over the years, and it will still take time for the project to be fully designed and start seeing it on the ground. We are looking to unlock the land, if you like, to bring forward land parcels, and then developers will come forward. And we will collaborate closely with all the stakeholders. So that will involve the town council as well as local officers and the county. And we're here for the long term. So the future management and stewardship is really important, where we hope you'll work with us too. And I think there's only really a few more things to say, that we have quite a tight timescale for delivery. Maybe Joel will take us
take us through what the programme is at a very high level. But what we're trying to do is be really clear with you on the steps as we go, so that we're regularly checking in and coming along to meetings, so that you always feel that you understand the scheme of goals, that you can have your say along the way.
Thank you, Jenny. So as Jenny's alluded to there, the timescales are set out, are there to be met, and there's a lot of technical side of things which we will do our best to sort of communicate that to you and explain what it is when a discharge condition is happening. We explain what that actually means in layman's terms. So there's no question too silly. Please do flag with us if you see a document uploaded or sent to you by the council that you wanted a bit more explanation as to why is this coming forward now. Hopefully by that point we've already made that clear, but if you do have any further questions, we're sort of the people to come to and ask those. Obviously it's quite tight timescales. So in terms of our engagement, this is the start of the process. So we are looking to hold an event, or we are holding an event, I should say. We've got a market stall booked for Thursday, the 23rd of September. I think we're there from 8 till 2. So please do pop along. It's very much hello, we're Homes England. This is our role, setting out that high level programme, sort of as we're alluding to now. And by that point, there's a few more bits that which will be fixed that will be able to sort of go live with the public. And that's very much sort of the starting gun for us in terms of consultation and engagement. We will have an online presence as well, and I'm sure we can sort of work with the new communications group to interlink the two sites and make sure sort of if they come to the town council, it's being diverted and vice versa. We'll look into that. But we'll also be very clear with you about what can be changed and what can't. Obviously, some of it is obligations from the outline stage where it's about us delivering to the best of our ability. And obviously, we are in a lot of conversation with the district council as well. So again, we'll be honest and open when there are things which are open for discussion and we can change possibly, or if there's bits of the program or the plan which are, it has to be like that for a technical reason, we will explain that. So we won't be leading up the garden path. We're not going to overpromise and underdeliver. We want to take you on the journey with us. And I think obviously we're another face here. I'm sure you've had Ptarmigan in the past, lots of different faces come and talk to you about this site. We don't want to rewrite the book. We're looking to build upon the work you did with them and they did with you. So please, you know, as much as we've gone through all the comments and all the past documents that you can find online to get a flavour of what the discussions were previously, please shout if we've missed something as we're sort of talking to you. Actually, oh no, we discussed that previously. Please do flag and let us know. That's the sort of forum to do that. As Jenny's mentioned, we're looking to get as many people involved as possible. So looking at speaking to as many young people as possible. So any ideas of local groups that if you scratch beneath the surface, there's always one that you can't find online. It'd be wonderful to sort of look into how we can engage with those. And perhaps we'll sort of contact you separately about that once the appropriate time. I'm going to be here on a monthly basis from October for the neighbourhood plan group meeting. So you'll board my face very quickly, no doubt. So again, providing updates at that point. We'll also send you our contact details. So again, don't have to wait to that monthly point. You always have our phone number, email, whatever, to get in touch with us. So please do. We're looking to build on the working group as well, working closely with you and seeing again, make sure we take things through at the appropriate stage and work with the community, not just about us saying this is what the community needs, where possible, listening as a conversation there.
Yeah, I think listening is kind of the stage that we're at the moment. So it was really great to see the design guide that's been prepared, and that's something that we've been going through, and it aligns to some of the early work that we've been doing, looking at the Ptarmigan scheme and seeing what we can deliver. So I think it's we're hoping that this will be a conversation I get with you over the next couple of years, probably.
And the last point just to flag is that we will be sort of reporting back in November. So obviously we've said hello back end of September. All the technical work is carrying on in the background. So we'll be able to sort of at the point of just ahead of submission of the design code and structuring plan, be able to come back and say this is what we're about to submit, the reasons why, etc. So we are reporting back to November time is the plan at the moment. And that's it really. We just wanted to say hello, this is us. So if you have emails from us or want to get in touch, we're not just somebody behind the screen, we're actually facing that. That's our name.
Thank you very much, and we appreciate you coming all the way over here to have a chat to us about this for as brief a time as it possibly has been. We're very grateful to have Homes England involved in this. As far as the delivery of the time at the site, Homes England was top of the list of what we would like, because we know that they want to do things in a way that's conscientious of the community that we are trying to build here. So this is an opportunity for us to build sustainably and to build a community. So thank you very much for that. Any quick points or questions from councillors while we're here? Councillor Gray?
One of the ambitions of this council is for Attleborough to be really facing in environmental and green matters. What can Homes England do for the prospective project that will fit into that?
I think the answer is to work with you. I think it's our ambition in the same way, and for us, I think sustainability is the economic, but the environmental and the social side. So I guess we have something called Building for a Healthy Life. And I think you're looking at the healthy new town word, and that's something that really comes through. So I think there's the environmental side, but also thinking about the people that will be part of the development at the same time.
Cool, thank you. It's very interesting regarding your development. I mean, I feel very strongly about community and access to schooling and the issues around access to various shopping precincts and things like that, and also access to any religious groups who may like to be involved, because that's quite fundamental to the British Constitution. But just one question, who funds you actually?
A simple answer is the Treasury. So we work with the government.
Oh, right, so you're
Forward the home.
absolutely independent.
So we're bringing together the consultant team that's needed to do the delivery. So that's
Oh, thank you. That is an assurance.
I think that's one of the big positives we have with Homes England, is that they are coming in from a different perspective. They want to deliver a community and the right type of sustainable development, rather than houses alone. So yeah. Thank you. Sorry, Keith.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. It's nice to come and do a face-to-face meeting. We had our first long planning meeting at Durham today, which seemed very strange. We didn't finish till 3 o'clock. Anyway, you know, on Butland Road today, there was that solar farm which adjoins this development, and that's a big solar farm. We want to be getting on with it. I had some questions for on that, but it will generate enough energy for approximately 7,500 units. So perhaps our urban extension will be nearly self-sufficient. But no, it's you know,
it's good to have compatible projects running at the same time, and that's what I was thinking. Particularly as we're looking at a greener future, a more sustainable future. You know, I keep on going on about my electric car, but it is revolutionary. You know, it's honestly, I'm never going back to petrol again. It's just crazy. And we need to have the infrastructure in place to deliver the green future, and that's why it's so important when we're having these discussions going forward, that the sustainability is seen from a more global perspective rather than seen as each house as a unit. It's got to be seen as something bigger. And I know that Ed is very keen on the 20-minute concept, 20-minute town concept, which ties all of these things together and is compatible with the plans that we're moving forward with Homes England.
The only comment I had, and again, you know, I'll endorse what Phil said, the fact that Homes England are the developers in its widest sense for this first phase. so beneficial to the community. It does align to government principles when it comes to sustainability, green, what have you, community based. And we have said we want to be ambitious. We've had, well, I'm going to say this, informal behind the scenes meetings and discuss how we do that in the future with them. Or this is where we want to be as a town council and the community. And Homes was fully aligned with that 20-minute town concept and sustainability. And it's a great opportunity for us to be an example within the country. But to make that happen, we all need to be on board on the same page, the same aim, the end result, and aims and objectives. And part of tonight is just an introduction, but the hard work will start now of globally what's going on. So in terms of power, energy, water, and what have you, Homes England through the refined master plan will be working through that, and the utilities and everything else. We can feed into what community requirements are needed, and that is by the AMT. And again, what's suggested is everything comes through the AMT, because that is the development plan for the town council. That's what it is. It's the same thing with reckoning through the local plan and development plan and what have you. So it's a great opportunity, but we all need to be on the same page, and we all need to understand it early and not put blockers in the way halfway through about saying, why about this, why about that. The outline has been approved. 4,000 houses has been approved. We're into phase 1, 1,200. What can we do to get early wins, short, medium, longish term, such as the new parking in there? And we need to be cooperative, productive, supportive, critical when necessary. Absolutely. But that's where we are today. And again, thank you so much for coming up today. Been engaged with this. This puts a marker on the town council itself now, because we've spoken about it so long. We also now need to produce. We've spoken about it a lot in the past. We now need to make decisions of supporting what's going on. We have little influence in this, politically. We are the town council. We're not a planning authority, we're not a highway authority or strategic authority, but we can use our influence. And with the 20-minute neighbourhood, which I'll come back to at the next town council and neighbourhood meeting with, we can be an example of the things that you want to do, we've all spoken about. So this is our one opportunity, it won't come again. So let's embrace it and do it.
Thank you. And I'm excited about this. I really am, because it's all about realising something that we've had as an ambition as individuals and members of this town community for so long. So this is a once in a lifetime, perhaps a once in a generation for this town chance for us to do this. So thank you very much for your support and your willingness to engage with us as a town council as well, because we know we're only the town council and we have very little say with it, and you are allowing us a greater voice and statutory we have. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Hope to see as many of you on the 23rd.
23rd is it? 23rd, yes, which will be communicated through the new events and communications.
So, 8 a.m. till 2 p.m.
You, unlike the police officers, are very welcome to your journey rather than bore you for the rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Take care.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's great. Okay. Right, since we're on to planning matters, item number 7. The first is 7A, plan applications previously agreed and responses made. Are there any queries, comments? No? Okay, would anyone like to propose acceptance of those responses? Councillor Tyra, second, Councillor Westby, and a show of hands for approval. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Councillor Dale.
only because I'm on the Brecon Planning Committee
Yes,
and I want to be seen, and that's the only reason.
thank you. Item 7B is a PAN application 3PL 2021-1191/A, which is the former garden garage driveway to Becca's house. Any comments, queries, questions? Yes.
The only thing I would question is the part demolition and rebuilding of the front wall. I'm just wondering if that is actually the wall. It's not, no. It is.
If it is, it will go up within the report.
I didn't see within the report I read.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just to point out 2 words on it. It was overdeveloped before, and as I told the case officer and that, and I spoke to the agent who's submitting the plans, and he thought on the same thing, the 1-bedroom little unit in there will fit in and probably start someone off on a property, whether that be a couple. It's town centre, it's in the development area. That's my point. I think Naomi Minter has got to be, no, she isn't, someone else. Not got to be the case after.
Thank you. I personally don't have any objections to this. And don't mind proposing that we respond with no objections. If anybody else would like to second that. Councillor Tyrant, show of hands for no objections. Okay, any opposed?
Sorry, I just didn't raise my hand.
So that's unanimous, yeah. Thanks. Right, we have item 8, councillor reports. We have District Councillor Keith here. If you wanted to take the opportunity to give.
Yes, yes, Mr. Chairman, thanks for that. Just give you a little update on odd things that's happened, quite a lot of that, really, but need to go through them all. First of all, the new bus stop signs have been put in the Harpen Road, New Road, and on near the school and the Whitley side. And I think they will start running from today. I'm sure. As I say, 1 or 2 of the residents rang me about a fortnight ago, and I was a bit vague on that anyway. But anyway, they're up as I checked. The other thing was appeal decisions. One for Attleborough, which was allowed, and that is land north of Blackthorn Road. That's the buffer bit of land against the bypass down at Queen's Road. So the inspector has given permission, and it's up to 18 dwellings with associated infrastructure and various works. So whether that will be the start, right along, but I was against it before, and the council were, but he's decided to allow the decision. All right.
Thank you for that information, and we'll keep an eye on that in the future.
And I'm keeping up to speed with the old Granton food site, Chris Hobson, the case officer, because there was a bit misled condition things, but there's still going to be 25% of the affordable housing, which is our minimum requirement. He has put that to me, but I'm waiting for another email from him. All right.
Thanks for clarifying that.
And the other thing is, I've done my vision and that and early spade work on the old Hampton and Brass Factory.
Yes.
I spoke to the church leader. He's actually been on hold, and I had a word with the head sort of case officer. Not necessarily she'll be doing that one, but she's there for any help if they want. But my opinion is that could be a good community use, one step at a time going through. It's got vision, but I mean, as far as I know, they are acquiring the whole site.
Thank you. They had sent an email to councillors informing them that that was their design. And I believe Councillor Westby has got a little bit more of a report on
Just a very brief update.
Yeah.
Two of the leading lights of that are my new neighbours. And I was having a chat with them about that over the garden wall on Saturday afternoon. And that they'd actually like to come and make a presentation to the council. We're amenable to that.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear from them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's got a very good community potential that's sadly lacking in.
Anything that helps this community, ask for.
Okay, I'll let them know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've been dealing with one person and he's back now because he emailed me and so he's got my support there if you want any help with the planning office and the chairman and vice chairman of planning. So we'll go from there.
Thank you very
That
much.
site's got terrific potential.
Yeah.
I probably could declare an interest because one of my sisters left school there and worked there and she was there until she was done. And I thought, anyway,
Thank you, Keith.
I think that's enough to report for now anyway.
No, I appreciate that.
I've got all the file here still and everything. This is all our urban extension when we were here, conditions and things. So I hope a lot of them will carry forward,
They are trying to take what's already been done and not start again, like the Lydia Park information.
I had an email from Homes England, but they seem to get different names. And I forget who it was, Nikki Davis, was it? Someone?
Nikki is one of the.
That's right.
Communicating officers. Yeah.
And then I remember having a meeting here with Susanna Strandell, Homes England, with Simon Wood and that was the early days. That was 13th of May 2021. Yeah, all right. Anyway, that'll be progressive.
Well, it's good to have you back here.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, I feel safer now. Do you know I've been through the mill?
Yeah.
I did.
Thanks for your addition.
Thank you.
We have a report as well that is included in the packs that was given from Debbie. So if any councillors want to raise any questions to Debbie before I give anyone else an opportunity to give a brief report. Very concise.
Update.
Thank you.
I won't go through it, public one.
Well, it's part of the public pack as well, so
So
it's
it's
great.
fun, yeah.
Thank you for that. Any other councillors like to give an update? Yes, Councillor Tyler.
No, you won't get this.
Sorry, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, it was just to say that Councillor Taylor and I spent a couple of hours in the company of Sergeant Shelley and Peter London a couple of weeks ago. A good tour around after both open spaces. Pleased to say that everything was in order. The public went out and about, enjoying the sunshine, enjoying the amenities, and it was a very interesting time.
Thank you very much for sacrificing your time to do that as well. Thank you. Councillor Tyler.
Yeah, I think this is full transparency. So I did allude to it earlier with painting. That when we say behind the scenes meetings are going on, there are discussions, not meetings in terms of we as a council will make decisions and we'll tell you what it's coming from. And I just want to be open and transparent. We have had a meeting with Friends England prior to today, and we suggested we do come along to the town council and we discussed engagement programme. But that informal meeting behind the scenes, I think from them was very important because we were able to outline the policies of the aim, the ambition of the town, policies of the AMP, what we'd like to see, and also doing it by committee doesn't always work. So it was more of a heads up, and I think those communications will continue. Secondly, we've been requested by the developers on Norwich Road to come to the town council to present, and we've suggested that they do so. However, I've also said, can we have a private meeting with them, informal, to understand it and explain the ambition of the town, rather than trying to do it by committee. And this will go on with regard to the AMP on a number of things. And in the past, I've been clearly spoken to by previous chairs and authorities within the town council. Thou shalt not talk to anyone without approval of the town council. And I want to get this cleared here and now of if a councillor is not able to talk to someone informally, word of the gate. If that councillor says, I will ensure this happens and that happens and don't worry, it will be fine, that is totally illegal. You can't do that. And I can assure you those conversations never happen. Behind the scenes discussions are through contacts and what have you, trying to take the town forward. And I feel over the last 18 months, and even last meeting, there's a bit of questioning of why you talking to these people, why don't we know about it, what are you saying? And I just want to reassure people that it's purely to try and get things moving, get the wheels in motion, contact the right people, explain where our afterwards, what our ambitions are, where we want to go, but you have to come to the council, you have to get approval by them. Behind the scenes, we can give you information, we can give you details, we can go through what you need to know. But I feel now is an appropriate time, because things are going to move very fast between now and Christmas. With Homes England, there may well be them picking the phone up saying, what do we do about this, what do we do about that, being chair of the MP or the MP committee members. I'd like to know, I've got, and others, got the approval of the town council to have those discussions without saying, yes, you've got approval and what have you. Otherwise, everything done by committee is going to take time and what I can do. So I'm asking for a bit of trust here. And a bit of trust is to all of our councillors. It's not just me, it's not Bill, but all of you. You engage with people, you're doing it for the right reasons to try and get things moving. And to come back and say, right, do a presentation to the town council. This looks a really good project. Do that. You've got the authority to do it. Not, you can't talk to anyone without the town council giving you approval. That sounds a bit trite, but this has been hamstrung the last 2 years. And I think the opportunity we've got now, I think, no, I'm being honest. Norwich Road Department, come in contact with us if you want to be. I'd say yes. Informed. Homes England, yes, before tonight's meeting. There's going to be others. But before I do that with anyone else, I'd like that approval that all those councillors can talk to people with really problem. I'll talk to you, I'll listen. I can't commit to anything, I won't give any recommendations, only showing way forward, or you need to talk to other people. Otherwise, when we mention the behind the scenes meetings and discussions, there's going to be questions and uncertainty, and that is not. So I'd like that to get resolved.
Okay. I think perhaps on that point, if I could just come in and just say something on that. I have no issue with people, councillors representing the town council as far as you're a councillor, you're having a conversation with someone, but you're not committing to something because it benefits the new council. It's a little bit like tonight we've had a report from Councillor Smith and Councillor Taylor. They have the assignment to liaise with the police. They use their initiative to meet with the police and go around the town, and it's benefited. And you've got a proposal for staff meetings tonight. And I think that's really good and useful. It allows us to do that. The remit of the neighbourhood plan is that we are trying to develop this sustainable community going forward, and that is the remit of that, so the discussions can happen. As long as we try and be frank, candid, and open about those conversations, and we don't make decisions. When decisions need to be made, the big decisions like those, they come back to the meeting, like you brought the staff meeting proposal back, and like what we'll have with Homes England, when there's big decisions to be made, and we either go from the MP or from the town council. So we're not making decisions behind the scenes. But what we're having is productive conversations with key stakeholders to facilitate them coming to the table with offers for us. that's the best way of doing it. I'm happy with that. It's the councillors. I don't think we need to vote on it in the sense that, you know, we're happy with that if we've got an issue with it.
I think it's way forward because in the past we have actually missed out
Yeah, we have.
when we couldn't actually speak to anybody without having it cleared first. And I think there are opportunities missed. I didn't know decisions are made. It's always reported back to the council. I can see no harm whatsoever. Go ahead.
You know what? You're all grown ups here. You're all sacrificing your time. You're not paid for this. You know, the time and effort we put into this, you know, it's hard work. So we've got the member officer protocol. We've got the standing orders of what we can and can't do. If we abide by those, I have no issue with that. Councillor Taylor, Councillor Ray.
Yeah, no objections to that whatsoever. Obviously, as long as no agreements are entered into, as long as no decisions are made, and we should all know better than that anyway. But I do think maybe just a mindfulness. I don't think anyone around this table should have any problems with any other councillors having these discussions because they are healthy, they do benefit the town. But I think in a public forum, maybe there should be a mindfulness when you're referring back to these meetings that have taken place, not maybe to refer to them as a behind the scene meeting because it makes it sound untoward.
Yes.
Just to say, I had a meeting with these people, this is what we discussed, what do you think? I think it's probably just a more frank way to say it. And it just kind of takes away that, well, why was it behind the scenes? What was discussed? I think that would eliminate that if we just said, I met with this person, like me and Andy, obviously have seen the police. We see the police, went for a walk around, it was really good. Everything was in good order. Do you know what I mean? Just to say that and be so open and frank about it, rather than say, or we had a behind the scenes meeting the Friday before last with the police. I just think like if you take those words out, it sounds a lot less.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think it is how it's said, especially in a public forum when people are watching at home. Do you know what I mean? What do they take away from that? Because they will. Do you know what I mean? I think it is just being mindful of what we're saying, how we word it.
Communication is something we're working on as a council. Let's avoid the phrase behind the scenes from now on. Okay, all right. That's okay. Debbie?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Councillor Taylor said, it's language. But I will say, as we're discussing AMP procedure, I would still like to see a copy of the committees and who the committee members are, and the minutes of their meetings, because that is in their code of practice that we should have them. And just because if we're being transparent and open, I think as councillors who aren't on the AMP, we should be aware of who is on these seven committees, and that they should actually behave and follow the council's code of conduct and declare if they've got a pecuniary interest in anything that's going on. And I'd like to see that happen.
Thank you.
I would say that it is indeed important to communicate, to have an ear listening to our constituency, and but to make it clear that none of us are in a position to speak on behalf of the council. If there are issues to be involved, we need to refer them back and perhaps say, right, look, I will refer back to the clerk, etc., and come back to you on that. But please understand that I can't speak on behalf of the council, but I am concerned about your welfare and the community. Have I understood that correctly where we're standing?
Yes. Thank you. Okay, if we can move on to item 9, financial matters. 9A, authorised payments. That's what Taylor.
Yeah, it's not a payment that I've got an issue with, but I did just want to point out that the £250 donation for the popular pillory normally does come to council for consideration. We're normally asked how much we'd like to donate. We always say £250, but we're always given the option as a council to say that is what we'd like to do. And as far as I'm aware, that did not happen. So it's a bit of a moan, but I'm happy for the £250 to be paid, and obviously would support that.
Noted, and, yeah, you're right. Thank you. Councillor Dare.
The intruder alarm, twice in 4 days.
Oh, I did pick up on that as well, but I didn't like that.
What happened there? Because was it not set properly, or was somebody trying to go, why do the?
I received a phone call from a resident of back saying the alarm was making a noise. I came down, got a key, let myself in. The alarm had been triggered, so I didn't want to reset it in case it went off again, because obviously it's very annoying to the residents.
Yes.
So I just cleared the alarm, locked it up again, said to the resident, I'll report it tomorrow, which I did. They came out, they checked the alarm. They couldn't understand what had happened, so they reset it. And then I think at a later stage, what had happened was the alarm had been set up to when you go into this entrance here, but because the entrance had been used at the end of the building and the delay wasn't long enough to get through to do the alarm, whereas if you go in this door, it's just inside. So that's now been sorted. We've set another small keys to the front door, so it shouldn't happen again.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
It's just based on what Anne said about the alarm. In the event of a call out, is that the protocol that you come out on your own?
No, not really. Well, I didn't come out on my own. I came with my husband, so
Okay.
that was fine. But it has now been sorted. We're waiting for the company to set up a system where it will go just kind of volunteer to be a first contact, and the caretaker is going to be second backup. So it should, yeah, I don't do what I call going for it 2 o'clock in the morning. So, I mean, luckily it was only 6 o'clock in the evening, so that it has now been sorted.
Thank you.
Okay. Would anyone like to propose acceptance of the payments? Councillor Dale, a second, please. Councillor Smith, and a show of hands, please, for approval. That is unanimous. 9B, direct debits. Any questions, queries? No? Would anyone like to propose their acceptance? Councillor Ellis and Councillor Taylor, and show of hands for approval, please. That's unanimous. Item 9C, income. Councillor Taylor. Is that to approve? Sorry, a second for approval. Councillor Lane, and show of hands for approval, please. Thank you. Petty cash is for information. Is there any questions on that? As is 9E, for income and expenditure for July. Any questions? No. 9F, quotations for the renewal of health and safety retained service contract. There are 3 quotations put into this. The names of the firms are in there. If you had an interest in these companies, I would have hoped you noted those before. But these were the contracts as they come out. Yes.
Yeah, I employ citations, so I'll take no time for this as my health and safety.
Thank you very much.
So,
Yeah, no, that's noted. Okay. Would anybody like to ask a question or make a proposal? Councillor Smith.
Question. Were all 3 providers asked to provide based on the same service level?
Yes.
Because one of them is substantially lower than others.
Pardon?
One of them is lower than others by
Yeah,
quite a margin.
they are. In fact, they are existing provider. Yes, they are, but it is on the same terms.
Okay.
One is for 11,000, one for 12,000, and theirs over 5 years is 5,170. For that figure, excluding the VAT.
Well, another question.
Yes.
How long will we have that, provider?
We've had them for the previous 5 years, as far as I want to say. Yes.
And any concerns?
The concern that's being raised with myself is that it may not be tailored for exactly what the council would want, but I feel with greater communication with health and safety services, they generally can do. It's down to communicating what we want from them as well. As far as the risk assessments, it was more office based than, shall we say, the ground staff based.
Okay.
But knowing the other two companies involved, I would say it's pretty much a muchness. The one advantage maybe is going from a procurement process is the first quotation is a local company. And maybe more amenable to communication. Okay. Any other questions? Would anybody like to propose acceptance of one of the quotes?
I'll propose acceptance of the bill.
And the first quotation as listed.
Yeah.
Okay, which is 5,175. Clarity. Councillor Montague, is that second?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, and a show of hands for approval, please. Thank you, that's unanimous for those votes.
You haven't voted, I abstained.
You haven't sustained, yes, you have. Thank you very much. Okay, correspondence. The first of these is from Matthew Holmes, item A, and it's in relation to the streetlight proposals at the Grampian food site. Does anyone have any questions on this? Or like so, Councillor Taylor?
Well, I would say no, don't accept liability and cost of street lighting. Ideally, it should be the highway authority, but they're saying no. It's probably financial more than anything else. But taking something like this, liability, going to cost them whatever, it's not something we can do at all. Whether they supply it or not is a different question, but it should be the highway authority. If it's a safety issue, the highway authority will be taken it on board. But I don't think it's liability we should be engaging in, because it will set a precedent, even though the same thing with covered banking, the hot songs will be developers. Lord knows what might happen in the future.
Councillor Westby.
Yeah, I can agree with Councillor Tyler. It's a growing trend that highways, professionally, it's a growing trend that highways aren't wanting to adopt street lighting. I don't see why we as a council should introduce liability. Ongoing massive expense. So I really don't think it's something we should entertain. As you say, it will set precedent as well.
Particularly if another house is coming up in town.
Right.
Yeah, so they can become a huge liability. That's a good point, actually.
Unless we put a 50% up there, then it costs annually.
No.
Don't want to go.
No, we don't. Councillor Smith, Councillor Busk, Councillor Lane, Councillor Taylor. So we'll go round in that order.
If we decline this, which I think is sensible, what would then happen? Would the lights not go in, or would Norfolk change their mind? People might know from previous times.
Norfolk will not change their mind, but the developer may put the lighting in regardless. then on a contract with somebody to provide the maintenance for. Councillor Busk.
I've seen the window at night where there are no street lights, and it's a safety issue. It is also an issue for the elderly, those with prams and things like that, especially in the winter time. And this philosophy of getting rid of street lights is to me a backward step, and I feel that we need to step out of line, and that we should support this. And on all these developments, yes, there should be street lighting.
Thank you. Yes, David.
I, apart from totally agreeing with Councillor Tyra about taking this on from a practical point of view, from a financial point of view, just is like a nightmare. But I feel very strongly about light pollution, and I know that if there were serious safety issues, then Breckland would be looking at putting something in. But I hate to see orange skies, and I think it's not a bad thing actually to protect our environment and our town and the rural area that we live in by not having bright lights lighting up the universe.
Councillor Taylor.
I was going to ask a similar question on the lines of what Councillor Smith did, which is if they've said no and then we say no, what is the alternative? Obviously, you've already addressed that. And with that in mind, I as well just agree that we don't see that, you know.
Okay, well, there's been voiced different opinions on this. So if anybody would like to make a proposal, signify carries. If anybody would like to do so, Councillor Taylor.
I propose to say
No, okay, seconded by Councillor Westby. Let's get his hand up. Let's see a show of hands of approval for that. Okay, I think that's fair to say that's carried. Okay, thank you. Item Q, request for use of Queen Square. Any questions on this one? Councillor Taylor.
Well, I know this is tricky here, so I was actually just going to say, how did we get on with that covenant? Is it non-existent? Is there an update?
We've yet to find it. Cliff, bless him, Cliff has put some time into this and has not found anything yet. He's going up to the archives to do so, I understand. Again, unless you want to give an update now, you're welcome to do so.
Yes, I'll trawl through the old Attleborough Parish records, minute books within the archive, but unfortunately I couldn't find any reference to the original covenants for Queen Square.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Taylor didn't make the point. I should have adjourned the meeting while a member of the public has participated in the debate. Sorry, I should have done that. My apologies.
let it down.
Sorry, but thank you very much, Dave, for making the point. And my search has not found anything yet.
Well, then I don't see any reason that we shouldn't support it.
Okay. And
Breckland are looking as well.
Breckland are looking as well. Thank
They
you.
are.
Yes, thank you. So we're all looking.
Conversation to
We've
take.
yet to find it. Yeah. So that may not be yes.
Off topic, but I would like to suggest that for future indiscretions, such as not breaking the meeting to allow the public to talk, maybe we should have a fine, Tim.
I better place it here because I'm the worst. Okay. This is for a worthy cause. Endometriosis is something that my own wife has suffered with. And she's campaigning for it, so it is something that is close to my heart as well, so I can support. But the use of the town square for good causes is something that we want to support regardless anyway. And it will be something, if approved, will be taken up in the new events and communication committee as we move forward. So would anyone like to propose? Councillor Francis and Councillor Taylor, and show hands for approval, please. Thank you. Let's see. As was stated by Nigel earlier. Okay, this is to do with the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. Anyone would like to comment or query on this one? Okay, we'll then like to propose that we accept it. Councillor Lane and Councillor Taylor, and show of hands for approval, please. That has been carried. And the item 10D, the Queen's Green Canopy. This Councillor Taylor.
That is what the scouts are doing.
Pardon?
That's what the scouts are doing.
It is, yes. So that's already been approved. It's kind of come from another route as well, which would open it up for other groups to participate as well as the scouts. So in principle, we've already accepted this. So
If anything, maybe we should just, and I mean, again, this will fall to the events committee, maybe it should just be wider publicised for those other groups if they'd like to get involved. Obviously, the scouts already have, but if it's an open invitation, then maybe just some publicity for it.
Absolutely, that list is growing big for the week committee, isn't it? So I don't mind proposing that we accept or put this in the next committee, accept this. Mention the change. Second by Councillor Lane, and a show of hands for approval. Thank you. Item 10E. This one has the Events Committee written all over it again, or at least the part communication and operating, to do with the Bakeholics Christmas Fair and Christmas Grotto. I don't think there's any dispute on how successful she's been, there's a lot of publicity and footfall into the town. Any comments on this? Councillor Montague, sorry.
I think especially as she's a new business, we ought to be supporting her. And I think, it's a jolly good idea because Christmas, we have the Christmas lights and so on. This would be an added attraction.
Yeah, and it's a very generous offer, may I say, it's not. So yes, thank you. Councillor Smith.
I have a concern that this is duplicating what we already have for Christmas. Little than 2 weeks away from when we actually have it. And I don't know why we would need to have 2 Christmas fairs in the same place, a fortnight or 3 weeks apart.
Thank you. Councillor Lane, Councillor Taylor.
The Christmas Carnival is something that's been running in the town for a lot of years. Which takes over the town, attracts a huge following. The idea of a Christmas fair that Morgan has suggested just before Christmas would be more aimed at the local retailers, local food, and would once again encourage footfall. The Christmas Carnival always happens the last week in November, so you've then got the whole of December where there isn't anything going on as such in the Advent period. So I think to run something on the square, a traditional event such as a food fair, would be good. And I also think it may attract different people than actually come to the Christmas Carnival. The Christmas Carnival is fabulous, but it is more a family-based thing, whereas I think the food fair may attract people without families, more, an older generation. I'd also like to say on this individual proposal, I think moving forward as a town council to have the retailers willing to run an event like this, to suggest it, and we should do all we can to support her to come up with these events and guide her through the process.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I do think that what is being proposed here is quite different to the Christmas Carnival. And I think the Christmas Carnival, because it is such a long-standing tradition, nothing could stand on the Christmas Carnival's toes. It's one of, I would say, our most popular events that happens in Attleborough every year. The street is flooded with people that come to see the switch on, and the tombolas and the raffles, and just the buzz. like throughout the street, it's packed. I know in the pub, that's our busiest day of the year. It's probably busier than New Year's Eve. It is always like the amount of litres of mulled wine we can do on that day is ridiculous. So I don't think anything would ever step on the Christmas carnival's toes, and that's not something that we need to worry about at all. But I do think that this is a great idea and should be supported.
I was just going to echo the same, not that I can remember Councillor Taylor actually working many New Year's Eve shifts, I think they were normally mine. But as she mentioned the light switch on, that is usually the focal point of the Christmas Carnival, and whatever Morgan or any other business wants to put on, they can't really take away from that anyway. And as Councillor Lane said, there was nothing going on that end of the month, and what actually happened right up until Christmas Eve. I think that's awesome. We should support it.
And one thing that she has been remarkably successful on is
Pulling a crowd.
communications. Social media, top notch. So, yes, if anyone would like to make a proposal.
But I just,
Sorry, yes, sorry. See you there, Councillor.
it seems good that this is an opportunity for other businesses in the town where it's related to Christmas to be involved. I wonder whether the proprietors would be happy to involve other enterprises so that it actually widened the scope beyond like a couple of stores.
It's certainly an option. What I don't want to do is overburden this proposal as it is, because I think events like this might mature into something more over time. And each year we can learn lessons from it and develop. So the proposal is for this as it's presented, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I was actually just going to add to that and say that, you know, while we've got someone that's willing, I don't think it's for us to dictate to them how to do it. I think actually our role in this is to support and support only. Yeah.
Completely. So
It's not a dictating. It's to the proprietors, the suggestion.
I think you could let that roll, and I think next year you might see something happen like that.
Yeah, quite possibly, yes. Councillor Francis, Councillor Westby, and then we'll call on to the closing.
Just a quick one on this proposal. Is it for the whole thing? Because there's obviously a bit about the grotto as well, running every weekend in December, and then the 20 to 24th, which I mean I would support. So I think it's great for the town, but would that be the whole proposal?
It's a proposal.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure that that was the case. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just looking by definition of multiple stalls, you didn't invite in other businesses anyway.
Absolutely. So, yes.
Full support for it.
Okay, if anybody would like to make a proposal, Councillor Francis, there's approval.
Yeah.
Councillor Montague to support that.
Yeah.
And a show of hands for approval, please. Thank you very much. It's approved.
Mr. Chairman, if you'll excuse me, I'll see you next month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're actually about 6 or 7 minutes ahead of where I thought we'd be. So it's not too bad. Tonight was manic. I know, I do apologise for the amount on the agenda this evening. It's a lot to go through. Next item is item 11. This is the Standing Auditor Review Committee. And item A, Councillor Taylor.
Okay, just a couple of small amendments, nothing too major. The first is under membership. I think rather than say 5 members, I think it should be no less than 5. Because I think obviously the terms of reference for the personnel committee were the guidelines for this. And I think with the personnel committee, there was a reason we kept it to 5, because obviously the things that they discuss are private. Whereas I think with this, actually, if more councillors want to be a part of it and feed in, then why not? Like, why restrict that number? So I just think that should be edited to say no less than 5.
So if we put into that line, just to clarify, the committee should comprise of no less than 5 members. Okay.
And also, where you talk about the membership, obviously it says that in this, that they'd be appointed on a 4-year term. And I think it should be appointed by council annually instead. Because again, with the personnel committee, the reason that it's done for that 4-year period is because you don't want like personal things of the staff going through a chain of so many councillors like that it changes every year. Whereas I think this, it's not private, it's not confidential. And actually, if it's a commitment that someone only wants for a year, then why not? And then in the annual meeting of the council, we could obviously appoint different members. So I just think that should be changed to annually. And also, last thing I promise, I just think paragraphs 2 and 4 on page 2, again, I think they're quite important with the personnel committee, but not so much with this, because obviously they're about confidentiality, privacy, all the rest of it. And I think obviously this committee shouldn't particularly be speaking about anything that's private and confidential, because it's council policies, which obviously are not private and not confidential. And as well, there was another reason, I can't remember what it was off the top of my head.
So this is on
Oh,
page
it's
2.
there now.
Is it, just to clarify, the 2 that you're talking about is the first one is members of the council and the committee. Those 2 paragraphs.
Yeah, just because as well, obviously it speaks about the fact that members would have to resolve that other non-members could be present. Well, chances are that's because the personnel committee again is often closed to the members of the press and public. So if a councillor wanted to stay beyond that exclusion, they would need the committee say so. Whereas with this, obviously, again, very unlikely that it's going to be excluded to the press and public. So I just think it just adds extra reading that's maybe not necessary. So just the removal of paragraphs 2 and 4.
Can I add something to that as well?
Yes.
Related to what you said about the number of members, that would also impact on the quorum. If you've got a quorum of 3, which is just over half, but if you're having more than 5 people, potentially the quorum could go higher.
The quorum legally, the legal
Legally is 3.
requirements.
It's 3 regardless of the committee.
All right, fair enough.
But no, that's a good one.
Is that okay?
This is why we have these meetings, isn't it? You know, it's put something.
I don't think
discuss
I've gone too far with the amendments. It's literally just that slight tweak with the membership and those 2 paragraphs being removed.
That is a bit heavy on the latter part, yes, I do agree. Councillor Westby, Councillor Best.
I think it makes perfect sense that the committee membership should be no less than 5. We're going to encourage as many people to be involved as possible.
Councillor Busk.
I assume that this is what happens anyway, but the parliamentary, there are standards laid down for different levels of council relating to relating to standing orders. I just assume that in fact that's a template which we use automatically when any reference to standing orders changes and such like.
That would be wonderful if there were such things as templates for local councils. There's simply not. So this is why we have to take it.
There are, and I can let you know.
Having spoken to the appropriate representatives' legal responsibility for this, there are not. There is the terms of references for the council to do as long as it is lawful. Okay, yes.
Can I propose my amendment?
You can propose your amendments, but anyone like to second it? Councillor Westby, and a show of hands for the amendments. Thank you very much. And then, as an amended document, can we have a proposal for accepting of the amended document to become the terms of reference for the said committee? Councillor Taylor, Councillor Westby, Councillor Wheeler, and a show of hands for approval. Thank you very much. Membership, no less than 5. So there's at least 3 vacancies when we consider this. This does differ from the next terms of reference that we'll be discussing, because 2 of the membership are the mayor and deputy mayor, because standing orders are something that we felt that they should be involved with in communication with the clerk, and the clerk is referencing. So would anybody like to either propose themselves or nominate another? Councillor Taylor.
I would very much like to be on the committee.
Okay, we'll do one at a time then. Is there anybody who would second that? Councillor Lane, and a show of hands for approval. Okay, so Councillor Taylor. You are a member of the new committee. Anybody else would like to be a member of this? Please don't be shy. Councillor Westby? And anyone would like to second that? Councillor Tyra, and a show of hands for approval. Thank you. I have just wrote down the wrong name. There we go. Councillor Taylor.
Now, I'd like to nominate Sue, as long as she's prepared to accept that nomination, only because obviously you all now have some parking experience, and I think that actually to have someone with that experience on the committee would be beneficial.
I'm glad you got there before I did. Sue, would you be willing to accept that nomination? Yes, and do we have a second before that? Yes, and a show of hands. That's Councillor Francis second, and a show of hands for approval. Yes. Now, whilst we have fulfilled the terms of reference for membership, are there any other councillors who would like to be on this committee? We will leave it there for now then. Thank you very much for volunteering. Item 12A, I guess we're going to have a similar conversation.
Yeah, exactly the same. The membership, again, no less than 5. And obviously appointed by the council annually. And then on this one, on page 2, it's paragraphs 3 and 5, rather than 2 and 4.
Does that address the concerns of the council as by and large?
Oh. I'm reading part of it, it looks like MI5.
You see, Vera, you go on about confidentiality so much, it just makes
I
me
do go on
paranoid.
about confidentiality, but it is a communications and events committee. And I would have thought it should be open,
Yeah.
you know, not as closed as it is in that middle bit.
Yeah, that's only, I think it is only because obviously the template that's been used is the personnel committee.
Yeah.
So, and obviously that did have to be out.
Yes, of course.
But I think, yeah, these should be a little bit more open and
Open and welcoming.
Yeah.
So is that your proposal?
That is my
Would
proposal.
anybody like to second that proposal? Councillor Dale, and a show of hands for approval for the amendment. Thank you very much, that's approved. And then for the amended document. Councillor Taylor, Councillor Dale, and a show of hands for approval. These are now the terms of reference. Members of the committee. Councillor Smith, is that for yourself? Yeah. Councillor Smith, would anybody like to second Councillor Smith? Councillor Dale, and a show of hands for approval. You can vote for yourself. You should vote for yourself.
You should vote for yourself.
Okay. Any other councillors? We do need 5 members of this committee, and it does not include the mayor or deputy mayor as standard on this. So Councillor Taylor, you just got there before, didn't you?
I would like to go on the committee, please.
Okay, and we have a seconder for that. Councillor Lane, and a show of hands for approval. Thank you. Councillor Lane.
Like to nominate you for.
And that's seconded by Councillor Tyrant, a show of hands for approval. I like this, this is really polite and nice, isn't it? Anybody else? Councillor Ellis.
Yeah, I'll nominate as well.
Councillor Ellis, if anybody wants to second Councillor Taylor's, seconding that, and a show of hands for approval. Councillor Ellis. And another.
As everybody's nominating themselves, I'll nominate me.
Please do, don't be bashful.
I'll second that.
And seconded by Councillor Smith, and a show of hands for approval. Thank you. That does fill the minimum requirement, but are there any other councillors who would also have a burning passion to be involved in this? Councillor Tyra.
I've got it, purely for the AMP. Thank you.
That's a good idea. So seconded.
Yeah.
Councillor Montague, and a show of hands for approval. Thank you.
Well done, Debbie.
Thank you very much. Okay. Item 13. Emergency Committee has a proposal from Debbie Lambs as well on this. Yes.
This is not negative in any shape, way, or form, so sorry. Excuse me. Yes, we do need something, but that normally comes into, we have an emergency plan, we level the authority for that, we should have an emergency plan. With new town clerk now, we can sit down and get an emergency plan for the council. I think that's as far as it should go, and it should be reviewed annually, but that should fit in with Brecon emergency services, chief stakeholders. I think having a committee for, and I understand the sentiments behind it, don't get me wrong, is another committee that, so what I think the focus should be, let's get an emergency plan sorted for the town council. So that it fits in with Brecon and Norfolk County and police and fire, etc. All it is list of numbers, something happens, who we contact, when, where, what facilities are open, etc. And we can review that annually. So it's not meant to be negative, it's just like we don't need another committee on it.
Yeah, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Wayne.
Yeah, I was just going to say that actually I did think that the committee structure idea was a good idea, for a couple of reasons. So the first being, obviously, there is reference to the fact someone was locked in the disabled toilet, not disabled toilet, in the public toilet, and obviously the firemen that were working come to the pub in search of a key. Obviously, I don't have a key. I tried ringing Phil. I tried ringing the number on the town council website, and in the end, I had to say to them that I'm not having any luck, and they had to call Sentry. Luckily, no damage was caused, so that was fine. But I think in an instance like that, yeah, it's okay to say we'll have a plan, but I actually think there needs to be a level where it's, do you mean like a tiered approach where it does stem into councillors as well? Because, for instance, I think actually, if it was something like that and it was just the fact of having a key, maybe not now so much, but at the present, obviously I am quite openly available to members of the public most hours, and if they did need a key, I would have been able to provide one. So I do think that there is probably a benefit to having it, do you know what I mean, officers and councillors working together in a committee structure. And I also think where, obviously, in an emergency plan, I think there would have to be some level of delegated authority. And unfortunately, at the moment, because we don't have a silk qualified clerk, there's actually limitations on what you can delegate. So I think, especially as well, to safeguard us, to have a committee would be a lot safer option.
Yes. I mean, not overly precious about this, I don't think, and the committee for committee statement. I don't think it's necessary in terms of lines of communication, who's got what, then that can get expanded to whatever. So you do that in the risk assessment. If X is not available, where do you go? If they're not available, where do you go? Where do you go? Where do you go? And that comes through allegedly the risk assessment for the emergency plan anyway. We should have a town council emergency plan. We don't. Now, if you want a committee to review that, I'm not precious about it. It's not a case of it's another committee, meet once a year, twice a year. But I don't want it to be seen as bureaucratic of another thing going forward. We need a plan, we need a point of contact, responsibilities, it connects into the emergency services. When it kicks off, we know what to do at the moment, as we found out last week.
Debbie had a hand up as well for a long time. I'll come round to it and give everyone a chance.
Okay, I wrote this report and I've called it emergency committee, but if you read down, what I actually said was, if something happened in our town tomorrow, we have no emergency plan in place. And my suggestion is that we, sitting here now as a town council, we have a responsibility to the electorate and we have nothing in place tonight. I appreciate that we have a new clerk and that I've been assured that this is an area she will be working on to get an emergency plan in place. Call it a plan, call it a committee, whatever you want. But as we are sitting here tonight, there is nothing in place. And I think that we should have a responsibility to have a group of people, even a working party, to sit down tomorrow or Wednesday and say, if an emergency happens in the town, how are we going to respond? Breckland have a very good emergency response on their website, very structured, but we actually do have a legal responsibility to have an emergency plan in place. We haven't had one for years, and we've had in recent weeks, okay, one could call that a minor incident with somebody getting locked in the loos. We've had flooding, we've had the banning poultry incident. These are relatively minor things. If God forgive, something happened in our town, like happened down south with a gunman going mad, what would we be doing as a town council tomorrow? If this happened tomorrow, there is nothing in place. And I think for the sake of, you know, 5 or 6 councillors just sitting down tomorrow and saying, look, let's just have something, have a phone tree, anything. But we have nothing, and I think that we're actually not serving the electorate by not having anything in place. Yes, let's go ahead. We do need a proper plan, but I keep hearing this word plan again and again come up, and it's kicked down the road, and it's kicked down the road. I think this is one of the most important things that we are failing at the moment as a town council, to have anything in place for emergency. You know, the fire brigade haven't got a number, the police, you know, I mean, this should be a multi-agency simple thing to have in place, but we have nothing.
Thank you, Councillor West.
In a previous life on the council, we had an emergency plan. The town was divided into sectors, but everything was coordinated. The most that we had were violent snowstorms, and that brought the plan into action, in which I was responsible for certain streets and so on. We have internationally a tenuous peace. Any time trouble could ensue, a bomb might drop. Okay, I'm not trying to scare people, but to not have a means of immediately reviewing something that's come through from government or what have you, and how this affects the town, what steps should be taken. We need to have a committee that is able to together respond and then contact the council and the police and others. I believe that it is essential.
Councillor Day, see your hand up.
Yeah, you did. I agree, you know, somebody get knocked in the loo, we need reaction, we need to be able to react to it, but we also need a bigger plan in the future. That means if something goes wrong, we have access to the school, somebody knows how we can get into the school. That is, you know, that is with Norfolk County Council, that's a wider plan, but at the moment, as the council is saying, we don't have anything, and how awful that person hasn't got a phone, or didn't know they're in, you know, nobody knew they were locked in, they've been there all night. You know, so we do need some form, but we also need a bigger structure, so that we have somewhere if there's a terrible flood to put people, you know, how we can organise food or blankets or whatever. Not that hopefully it will ever happen, but it's better to have it ready than not at all.
I think you have to look at the way this council responded at the start of the pandemic to maybe see that this is probably an important idea.
Councillor Taylor.
Which takes me to put my hand up. Obviously, an emergency plan, I do think it needs to be in place. And again, I mean, I don't think that an emergency committee would be meeting once a month. I don't think it would be meeting once every 2 months. I think it'd be quarterly, every 6 months, maybe even once a year, as and when it is actually necessary. But that committee, like the Standing Orders Committee, pulling together the council's policies, could help and work with putting that plan together. And actually, the plan, as well as it may be, there will no doubt be something at some point in the future that plan doesn't cover, that, you know, there has been an oversight. And when this pandemic started, I lobbied this council and said, we don't have a plan, we need to react, we need to do something, asked them to set up this helpline. And although a minority of councillors, probably 7, agreed, obviously it was not passed because there was not a majority, so we had to do it ourselves. And I just think, Joanne, if we have a committee like this,
we could meet and we could have those discussions. And actually, if we'd have had that in place a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe we would have offered that support to the town, which has now helped over 1,200 people or taken over 1,200 phone calls. Do you know what I mean? And that could have been the town council doing that if they'd have had a committee like this in place.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
I don't think anyone's denying the need to plan. I think that's the most important thing. And I think that's a matter of urgency needs to be worked on. Whether it's a committee, whether it's a working party. The previous two items have shown me quite detailed terms of reference, etc. for committees, which may well delay the process even longer. Would a working party allow the formation of that plan to go ahead faster?
Oh, I've got an opinion on this, if you don't mind sharing. I do like to hear your opinions before I share my own, which is why I've given you an opportunity to do. I think there's a halfway house, and we'll get the best of both worlds, because the problem with establishing new committees is we can't establish a new committee tonight. That'll be another month before you've got the committee in place. They won't be able to authorise any actions until they meet as a committee, appoint a chair, have minuted meetings, and even any plan they put in place will probably need councillor approval in the committee meeting before they can action anything at an emergency request. With having a responsible officer and other things, and a proper officer, and when you've got to consider as well, whatever committee members we have, the chances are you're in employment or you've got other things happening. In the middle of an emergency, how available are you going to be? What are your priorities going to be in those months? How are you going to respond? Do you have an employment? Do you have a family? Do you have other things that you need to be attending to? So what's going to take precedence in that moment? I feel that we have a committee already established that could get the plan working, and that is a standing order review, because they can be appointed as terms and conditions to get the longer term plan in place. I think a short term assignment is we get a communication tree in place. So there's a line of communication for emergencies, which can be very easily assigned to our staff members who are our full-time employees responsible for that, rather than us who very often are very busy. If there's an emergency in Attleborough, the chances are I'll be running around like a headless chicken trying to sort out what's happening at work or at home or for other families. I won't be so dedicated to what's happening at the town council, or at least I'll have a split responsibility, which will dilute any work I do in that. So I think the plan ought to be assigned to the committee that we've already set up, because they'll have the tools to do so. But in the meantime, we also make an assignment tonight that a communication tree is put into place within the week with our new clerk, who can then communicate that to ourselves for approval to go to the public. So we get a short-term fix for communication, and we get a long-term fix with the committee, getting more of a plan and substance behind it, so that our staff have some guidance when these things happen. So that's how I feel. And I'd like to propose that. Okay. Okay. And if we can have a show of hands for approval, please. Thank you. There we go. Thank you very much. Item 14. I don't know which one I'm going to hand over to, whether it's Councillor Smith or Councillor Taylor. They've both been working with police, as you've heard tonight.
Not a massive amount to say.
I think it's already been described, so it's a proposal in many senses. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, so obviously following on from what Sergeant Shelley said when he was here speaking public participation, the SNAP meetings at the moment are being organised by the police. That isn't really their responsibility. The proposal is that we host the meetings going forward. In hosting the meetings, set the agenda, prepare the minutes, and send out the invitations to the other agencies that would like to invite. That is the proposal. Aside from that, the the officer that he mentioned, Paula, no, the engagement officer. Yeah,
that's it.
Their engagement officer, she will be able to provide us with a full list of the agencies that should be in attendance so that we can obviously get those invites out. It shouldn't be obviously a huge amount of work for the council or our resources in the office. It's a meeting once every 3 months, an agenda and some minutes and some invites. So I think actually it would be a lot more beneficial moving forward.
And as part of that, will we be able to utilise staff as parking?
Yes, Michelle. Let's sort that one out. Okay. So that's the proposal. Seconded, Councillor Smith, you want to second that one, seeing as you are the appointed team? Show of hands for approval. That's great. I'm very much in support of this, so thank you very much. Okay. Any other items? Just to clarify a comment that was made for apologies. This evening I received a letter of resignation from Councillor Barry Cousins. I'd like to thank him for the work that he's done on the council. I did that publicly, wishing well for the future. And the vacancy will be advertised in due course in accordance with already agreed policy for vacancies. So we'll be doing that. That's the only other item I have. I kept it very brief tonight because I saw the agenda. Okay, public participation. Is there anyone else? Have we bored you to tears yet?
Mr. Chairman, would you allow a question from an Attleborough Academy student?
Of course.
Thank you.
I have an inquiry about how you guys have said about eco-friendliness and in the building project and everything else. A high thing that has been standing up recently is about cars. A lot of things have been mentioned about electric cars, but what about hydrogen cars, as they don't produce as much like fuel and like things like that? And the electricity, although it's nice and all, but not all of it is from fair resources. Some of it is from coal and other things like that that also create pollution that then can lead to mass like destruction of other things like oceans and other things like that. So why don't you guys start investing in like hydrogen cars and transforming diesel cars and electric cars into hydrogen so that there's not as much pollution in the air?
That's a very good question. I can answer a little bit on this as well. You may not be aware that Rolls-Royce is working with the government at the moment, and a few energy companies are what they call micronuclear generators. These micronuclear generators could be going into service within the next 2 to 3 years in the trial format, which will provide much of the energy required in a clean way. And because they're micro in their nature, it means that the hazardous fuel produced at the end of it is dramatically reduced and easier to store long term than the current generation of nuclear generators. That's seen as one of the quick and easy wins because fusion is still 10 years away, so it's always 10 years away. But that's one of the big things. We've seen a greater use of renewable energies within the UK. I'm not here as government policy, it's just an area of interest that I have as well. And something that we are supporting locally is like the solar area. That is going to be quite a big area, as mentioned by Councillor Heath earlier this evening. Hydrogen transport is a problem, and hydrogen generation is a problem at the moment. We've got to get over a few technical hurdles for this because the production of hydrogen is actually higher in energy use than producing the energy that can go straight into the cars itself. We're getting close, and there's use of new metamaterials that are being done. It's an area of expertise I have that is going to help with that process. But I think realistically, hydrogen is 10 to 20 years away before it's in a position before it can be used locally. Certainly needs to be part of the long-term planning solution for this, but a more immediate availability is electric cars. But yes, that's just a little bit on that. Sorry.
I think that was an awesome question. I absolutely get what you're saying. We are pushing electric, but electric obviously has like a massive effect environmentally anyway. The production or the mining of, is it lithium they use in the batteries, can have quite a devastating effect on the area where they're mining them. It's a difficult area with transport because 20, 30 years ago, less people were using cars and petrol and diesel wasn't so much of an issue. Now we have the issue where people are empowered to drive and more inclined to drive shorter distances. We have busier roads, we have more cars going into production, more fuel being used. And until we get over those hurdles and we have hydrogen or fusion or whatever, we're always going to be at a sort of a difficult position over what's the best thing to use. But that's a really good question. And if you do really care, encourage your friends to cycle and walk. They don't need driving licenses, tell them to walk.
That's a very good point. I think Councillor Tyler's going to come on to this, and then Councillor Smith.
Can I just say, fantastic. Thank you so much for being at this meeting. Thank you so much for asking that question to a lot of our, we're more mature people, let's say, but you are the ones that are going to live through the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And part of the AMP was addressing how we do that. And we are, so I'm going to stand up because I can't see you. And as the person from Homes England said, in terms of future group, we will be engaging with the academy and students, say, it's your future. And as part of the AMP, we want the youth on there to say what you want. And these challenges are going in the future, carbon zero by 2030. To a lot of people, they don't even understand what that means. So we are addressing that, but because we've got Homes England on phase one, who are linked to governments, we want Attleborough to be an example nationally. We can ask these challenging questions of how do we grow as a community over the next 20, 30, 40 years, be sustainable, what the idea is. Now, there are practical issues, as Phil said, in terms of hydrogen longer term, but the key thing is a lot of cars in Attleborough don't need to be on the road because the people who live within 1 or 2 miles and can't be bothered to walk, they're too lazy. That sounds ruthless, but that's the reality. So why those people on the road? So you walk, you cycle, you get better health, you get better environment. But also with Homes England, we're working with the New Anglia LEP. And one of the key areas for East Anglia is clean energy. So we've got Sizewell nuclear, we've got the offshore, we've got solar. So what we're trying to do is get all these bits of the jigsaw. This sounds really boring. As a kid, you probably don't know what you talk about. No. But we understand these bits of jigsaw, and we're trying to get them together. But what we need is people like you involved and say, don't listen to me because I'm oldish now. It's you driving it, and people will listen. So thank you so much. We are trying, but you need to be engaged. If you talk to Mrs. Tyler at the academy, she's the liaison with the community. We'll get you on board. We're brilliant. Thank you.
So you want to ask a question, Councillor Smith? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, it was just to reiterate what a great question. And just one thing that the council do, and it's only a small step, and we haven't done it for vehicles, but last month agreed to replace all the diesel power tools with electric ones. So that's one small step. There's more to go.
And we are reviewing and getting quotes at the moment for an electric service vehicle to replace our diesel vehicle as a council at the moment. So that is something that we are hoping to do within the next couple of months. Okay, yes, you have.
But also, UK is only 1% of the whole world's emissions, whilst China is 25%. So it doesn't really make if we move, then it's a 50-50 chance of the others moving, because if the others don't move, then there's not really much point in us moving. If they're just gonna stay there, continue with the emissions, waste, and everything else, continue with the same old things and just make it worse and worse and worse.
Geopolitics.
I'd love to be at the new summits when it's talking about these things.
We need another discussion.
It's a very, very valid and good point. But what I will say is, anything you do makes a difference. I remember reading a story about somebody who was He went to the seashore and he saw that, you know, washed up on there was loads of crabs. There'd been some sort of storm, and there's loads of crabs on there. They're all drying out and dying, and they were in piles. And somebody went to them and saw another person throwing one in at a time, almost endlessly. And they went up to him and said, "Why are you bothering? It's not going to make a difference." And they said, "It does to this one."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we do locally and individually does really make a difference. Sorry, Lucan.
Yeah, and you can't, although you're saying you're right, that big places like China, big countries, they are the biggest contributor. You need small, sometimes you need the smaller countries, or you need people like yourself to take that first step and set an example. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Weston.
The other thing I would stress is to use more public transport, because that is a lot more sustainable in overall terms, and the use of alternative technologies for propulsion is a lot more viable on a larger scale with buses and trains.
I just have one final comment. I mean, to take this further, I mean, please don't go home and think, well, that was a waste of time.
No, I won't. I've learned something new. It's fine.
It kind of is, because we're a small cog,
Yeah.
but we're trying to do stuff. And the idea of 20-minute neighbourhood, it's about walking, cycling, the use of energy, creating energy, renewable energy. If we become an example, become an example in the UK, become an example in the UK, become an example in Europe, you know, it goes up. I've done European projects in the past, which happened. But something practical, talk to your teachers in the school, be passionate about this, absolutely fantastic. We've got an opportunity with Homes England, and I kind of mentioned it with the academy anyway. Bring it up, talk to your teachers, talk to your friends, become active, and we'll come back, we'll contact through the academy of how to get you involved. And these messages need to come out, because, as I say, most of us won't live through this development. We'll be dead by then. It's people like you know, and your families that are living off the consequences of the duffers like us making decisions. You know, so please get involved. Contact your teachers. Contact Mrs. Tyra. She'll hate me for this, but she's the conduit. And really get involved, because we need that passion. We really do.
Thank you. If I could just limit you to another talk, because we are quite tight on time. Just one more. Sorry, did you want to say one more thing?
Yeah.
So you want more comment?
But to bike, to walk, you have to make the paths and
Yeah.
like little roads. So you have to cut down trees to make that. So you're technically still killing the environment, although you're trying to be nice to the environment. So you still have to harm the environment to help the environment.
There's a lot of ethical decisions here. It's going to be a difficult one for us to cope with as a society as a whole. But thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'm mindful of the time. Nigel, you've been patient.
I'm actually at the time of the question that colleague Ray said, going back to the Home England 0.6 and these 1,200 houses on phase one. We talk about solar. Have any further investigation been done into ground heat salt recovery, wind power for these developments? I mean, we might need to talk AMP, but we're bumming all these houses into quite a small space. What alternatives have been looked at to power these houses?
If I may, just on that, we're currently refining the concept master plan. Part of it is infrastructure and part of it is power. Okay. So they are looking at sources. Also, there's something we're about to get the biggest digestible renewable energy place in East Anglia that's going to power Asper. So, and also they are looking at rewiring some of Snetterton. So infrastructure itself, they are looking at how do we power it, and the key thing is as renewable as possible within the constraints we've got. So that's part of one of the bits of discussion. What's out there? How can we do it? What are our thoughts? So it's absolutely. And it comes into
Great time,
you know, our young colleague over there was saying, you know, how can we be different? Let's challenge, let's push the envelope. That's what we should do.
No, it's interesting.
Thank you, Councillor Weston.
Yeah, the use of air source heat pumps and ground source heat pumps is quite common now. And modern insulation standards in new build property is so high that they virtually don't need heating anyway.
Is the requirement when you're doing planning that they meet these specifications, or is it a case of there's 1,200 homes, thank you very much?
I don't think it's a requirement, but I think it's cost effective to do that because they need so little background heat.
And Homes England are, we have a draft design code as part of the AMP in terms of fire sustainability. That's gone to Homes England, they're reviewing that, and I am sure in discussions with us, they'll try and up that ante.
And when you look at some new developments around, you see some houses with solar panels installed. And generally, my understanding is they've been the social housing, but if the private buyer wants them, they've got to cough up for them. Well, I know solar panels become cheaper, but if it were to be considered to be part of the planning application,
it's all in the mix for discussion, which is good. There's no fixed.
It's a bit of common sense, maybe. Developers might not like it, but that's just tough.
It's a very good point to some that, you know, sustainability is one of those ongoing conversations that we're going to be having with them over a period of time.
Thank you.
Sorry, Cliff, did I see your hand up as well for a moment?
Well, these very important questions. Mine isn't quite so important, perhaps. I was just thinking about the emergency planning committee. It'd be vital for those people to actually explore what's already out there and pull that together. You know, it's not a matter of reinventing the wheel. After 9/11, there was a vast amount of equipment sent out to all fire brigades, and Norfolk being one of those. And that all stands at Windham at this present point in time. And a lot of the brigades locally are trained up in using that equipment. And that's to deal with CRBM, chemical, radiological, medical, and I've got one more in there somewhere. But the equipment is there, so you know that's there. The people are trained up. If it's a matter that a tanker crashes on Queen Square and it's a chemical incident, they've got all the equipment to mass decontaminate people. But there is a need to actually work with perhaps like the local council, because where do you set that up? You know, all of a sudden you would need a place wherever to be commandeered so you could set all this equipment up and put it into action. But the same applies with, you know, the police and all the other, you know, people, emergency services. It's really a matter of how do you pull those together if something happens in the middle of Attleborough.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't do this in isolation. What we need to be doing is supporting and cooperating and pointing the finger to those authorities which will have primary responsibility in these areas.
Yeah, with the Poultry incident, obviously trained up in chemicals, so that was dealt with very quickly, a very small incident. But when we started looking at emergency plan, and it's a plan for the larger incident and being ready for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. One very quick comment because we need to carry on. Yes.
Why haven't the Bretford Council or any council put in a plan already to make sure that the town would be safe in a chemical incident or a sudden, so that they don't have to come from other places, and like there isn't even like more than one ambulance here at the police station, that they have to come all the way from Norwich, and that could take up to half an hour, and that gets quite frustrating when you're waiting for an ambulance half an hour to come and get someone that's having pain and pain generally everywhere, and they're crying from pain. Well, you only have one ambulance that's probably out somewhere in the middle of nowhere, like Thetford, and like you get ambulances coming half an hour to an hour, and it gets so dang frustrating that you generally want to smack someone around the face, because it's like, why don't we have more than one ambulance here? Because like she has epilepsy, and when I have to call for an ambulance for her when she has an epileptic seizure, that takes longer than 5 minutes, then like, if the ambulance comes in half an hour and they're just dang waiting, then she could probably die if it takes too dang long. That's why he helps sometimes to get her to the hospital sooner than an ambulance does. Why?
That's down to national funding for emergency services. And if you want the blunt answer, they're having a debate in Parliament at the moment about putting the national insurance up to cover, social care. And that's been resisted. It comes to taxes and available resources. That is definitely above our pay grade here at the town council. And it's not something that we discuss in Parliament. But what we try and do, and what we do as a community, is we try and represent the needs, the social needs, the economic, the sustainability needs of our community as best we can, and raise that voice. We are very rarely in a position to make any decisions that will affect it, but we try and make that voice for the community. So thank you. We need to move on, if I can, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Please.
Chairman.
All right, 1 minute, Nigel.
Just a very quick one.
Well,
Can I just say how nice it is to see a proper agenda and a full agenda that has been debated fully. I haven't seen an agenda like that for years, and it makes a difference. So thank you.
I'm glad I gave you the time, Nigel. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much for being here with us tonight. And those viewing as well, taking the time. All 9 of our viewers have got a passion since then. And who will view it subsequently. We do have a matter of private discussion as a council on a legal matter, which is noted on the agenda. But what we will have to do is close this meeting to the press and the public. And if you could make that, you don't have to leave quite yet, but we would like to make a proposal. If I can propose that we exclude the press and public to discuss a sensitive legal matter for the council. Seconded by Councillor Tyra, and the show hands for approval. That is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman.
You're very welcome.
Well done. Can I go?
Good night.
Good night.